Would you believe that some of the War of the Spark cards are already losing their value? Let me tell you 10 cards that are going down the drain that you need to sell right now. Hello everybody, it's NerdPhil, and today I'll be showing you 10 cards that are going to probably go down in monetary value, and I'll explain why they're going to continue to go down. These 10 cards that I'm going to talk about are rated by their relevance now, the relevance in the future, and the individual strength of the card. If you want to see 10 War of the Spark cards that are going to go up in monetary value, go ahead and click the video right above my head. Let's go ahead and get started with number 10. Tamiyo, Collector of Tales. Now Tamiyo is a good card for a deck that is looking to dig through their deck and put cards in the graveyard, which is why she's a perfect addition to the Nexus of Fate deck. Unfortunately, she doesn't really fit into any other deck that shares her colors. The Merfolk deck really doesn't have a need for her because they're more focused on getting creatures and going wide as possible. The Bant Nexus deck already has good resource engines like Vivian and Teferi. Once Nexus of Fate rotates out of Standard, I don't think she'll really have a deck to fit into, and really, we're all glad that Nexus of Fate is rotating, so maybe this is actually a good thing. Number 9. Sorin, Vengeful Bloodlord. Now, at first when Sorin was released, he looked really good at first glance, but when the meta deck started coming out, there wasn't really a deck for him to fit into. The Aristocrat occasionally uses him, but there are better cards that gain life, sacrifice better, and they do it faster than Sorin. If his plus ability was able to hit creatures, he probably would have seen play, but unfortunately he doesn't, so he's not going to be relevant. Number 8. Bolas's Citadel. Now this card saw a lot of potential brewing because the community found out pretty quickly that cards that do things like Experimental Frenzy are pretty busted. But unfortunately, playing a card for 6 mana that doesn't give you immediate benefit and makes you lose life as opposed to just doing a frenzy thing is a lot worse than just playing Experimental Frenzy. Also, at this point, most people who wanted to use this card got it pretty quickly, so I don't think this card is going to see any sort of relevance for quite some time. Number 7, Vivian's Arcbow. Now, Vivian's Arcbow was speculated to go into a lot of green aggro decks or a lot of green creature base decks because it seemed like a pretty good thing to basically get a free creature by discarding a card that you may not have needed. Unfortunately, this card is in a bit of a weird spot because most green decks want to be playing a good creature by turn 2. Got Wild Growth Walker, Merfolk Branch Walker, Karl Harpooner, Growth Chamber Guardian, and there's probably more that I'm missing that you can name. It's also a legendary artifact, so it's kind of hard to determine how many copies of this you should put into a deck when you can only use its ability once on the field. Number 6. Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. It seems Jace is the original OG Gatewatch that won't be making an appearance into Standard anytime soon, which kind of sucks because he's basically like the mascot of Magic. I'm not really sure what happened here. While it is fun to see mill or self-mill in Standard, it's just really not competitive enough to get enough people wanting the card badly. Most people who want this in their commander deck or for their own fun standard deck have already gotten it at this point. Number 5. Dreadhorde Invasion. Ah yes, the bigger Blossom card. The card that had a little bit of debate whether it was actually good or not. Now from what I understand, most people thought it was at least a decent card, even if it's a worse version of Bitter Blossom. While individually this card is very strong, there's just not a lot of decks that can maximize its potential. Now, if you want to know how I was able to maximize this card's potential in my Rakdos Zombies deck tech, go ahead and click above my head. Now, while making a body that gets bigger and bigger every turn is a strong effect, there's a lot of strong removal in Standard right now, so this card really isn't at its full potential. Number 4, Feather the Redeemed. Now, all the people that were interested in the Boros and Naya deck techs have already pretty much created them at this point, and the Feather decks haven't quite broken into the meta, but I have maybe a slight suspicion it will, but it's still up in the air. I do think the Feather decks are very strong and very explosive, but the decks still haven't found a way to really maximize its full potential. I personally think that the Feather decks need to play Thud a little bit more and just kind of go for a one-shot kill, but maybe that's wishful thinking. So until Feather really breaks it into the meta, there's not really much hope. Number 3, Time Wipe. Now, even though board wipes are always welcome to control players, the Esper decks already have access to Kaya's Wrath, which is a mana cheaper and potentially gains life. There's not really a need for control decks to bounce a creature back into their hand, even if they do the transformational creature side deck thing. Until Kaya's Wrath somehow becomes irrelevant, or until pure Azorius control becomes relevant, Time Wipe is always going to take the back seat. Number 2, Rolo-esque Apex Hybrid. I'm not really sure what deck wants to play this card besides maybe the Merfolk deck or the Explorer's Package deck. But even those decks would probably rather play 2 creatures in a single turn than play Rololesk. Now I'm sure this card goes great into a Commander Super Friends deck, but I don't think this card is going to make it into Standard or Modern anytime soon. And finally, number 1. This is the card that everyone wanted to try in Standard and justify playing, but couldn't really, and it's Niv Mizzet's worst form? Now the backstory behind this card is actually pretty cool and interesting, but his other form, the Perun form, is way better and actually playable. Now at this point, Niv Mizzet Reborn is strictly a commander card, and most people who want him have him at this point. So that's all I have for you today. Let me know in the comments down below if you think there are other cards that I missed that are going to go down in value and probably never see the light of day. Go ahead, smash that sub, that like, and that bell if you want to see me speculate the standard market even more, where I cover all the standard sets that are going to go up or go down in value. Go ahead and check out my other videos where I tell you how to draft really well in War of the Sparks, and also to see my spicy deck packs. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time for your Nerd Fill.